Good evening, students. This is Professor Capoletta. It's spring 2022, and I wanted to go over the first assignment in this class, which is going to be let's see. Oh, okay, here we go. I'm going to share screen, which is going to be the prompt for the public speaking. I teach this course in reverse, which means most of your 1311 classes will begin with units 1 through 5, chapters 1 through 5. Unit 1 is generally overview information about our discipline. I like to begin my course with the public speaking component to the class because what is happening during the end of the semester for you? That's right, it's your final exams. And I find that students are oftentimes stressed out. So I like to cover the most research intensive component to this class at the beginning of the semester. So we're going to look at the speech assignment rubric and the requirements and the grading of this assignment. This assignment will call upon you to craft a policy speech presentation. And in that presentation, you're going to work to make sure that we understand any words that may be unfamiliar to your audience. That's what the word semantic noise means. It's unfamiliar terminology. You'll be providing definitions for unfamiliar terms, give us vivid examples, as well as statistical support. Make sure that you review the examples of student exemplary work, which is provided here on a Google Drive. I even make a note to myself, Capoletta, don't delete this, because here you have a myriad of examples that you can turn to. When you're working on this assignment, you should have this tab open and then your actual outline in a separate tab side by side. That is very important for you to do when you're working on this assignment. You're provided exemplary examples for a reason, and that will make sure that you are quickly able and accurately able to craft a full sentence outline that is aligned with the rubric. It will also allow you to avoid common pitfalls, and that's why you're going to want to listen to the podcast and watch the videos that I provide. Please make sure that you attend a workshop with me and make any necessary corrections. Every student in this class is required to meet with me one-on-one, or in most often it will be in a group situation where I'm working with each individual student, and it's great because students will be maybe in a group of 5 or 3 or 7, and I'll make corrections to one student's outline, and in real time other colleagues could be making the same corrections to their outline. So make sure that you meet with me at least one time to make sure that you've got your grade locked in. You're going to—
It's 1 o'clock.
I love it when my computer does that. It's 1 a.m. in the morning, by the way. I'm like, right, I guess now it's Monday morning before we start our semester. Make sure that you research. You're going to conduct your research. You're going to organize your outline. You're going to draft an outline. I guess I need to actually, rehearse the speech, and then you're going to present it to our class. Make sure that you keep in mind all of those elements that we talk about in lecture regarding audience adaptation, being audience-centered. In fact, I should probably put that in there, audience-centered. Well, I'll do that later. And actually, I'll do it right now, regarding audience-centeredness, audience adaptation, and organizational patterns. Okay, so did I spell that right? I'm dyslexic. Delivery styles and supporting material. When you begin this assignment, it's always good to begin an initial brainstorm. We also call that a brain dump. And I'll have some examples for you. And that will allow you to guide your research. Always conduct the brain dump first. Some students like to get out a notepad. Other students like to type in the interface. Some students literally just start to write in stream of consciousness. It's very important to do the brain dump first, and that will allow you to conduct your research effectively with keyword terms. Just put that in there. And it will drive your organizational pattern. So be mindful of the credibility and the dates of your sources. And some students may want to include survey results in their argument construction. So for example, 50% of the class did not know what canned hunting is. and you could use that in your actual speech. You've got different organizational pattern elements that you can utilize when you craft your speeches, and they're right here. And there's actually a variety of lectures on informative speeches and persuasive speeches, and you're thinking to yourself, how do I access those playlists? Well, they're actually at the very bottom of this prompt. I'm going to have, and this is going to be, I'm going to insert this video right here. So you will have these video playlists right here at your disposal. Okay. And I would highly recommend, well, you need to watch those or you're going to be completely lost. So now if you decide to use the motivational sequence as your organizational pattern, understand it is a very tricky way to craft a speech. It's highly effective. It's used by advertisers all the time, and it's a wonderful sales presentation. And I have found over the course of the pandemic, when I've been teaching online, that students who watch this lecture on the Monroe nail it out of the gate. In fact, quite frankly, I asked students, how come you did this so effectively? Because pre-pandemic, I would spend 3 days lecturing on the Monroe motivated sequence, and students had difficulty. And they said, well, professor, I watched your video. And I'm like, whoa, well, thank you very much. Your outline is just wonderful, and I'm very impressed. So please, if you decide you want to do a sales speech on a product, then make sure that you watch that video. Evaluation of your performance on this assignment will consist of the following: your meeting with me, which is 30% of your grade; your written documentation, which is your full sentence outline; your works cited list; and then a multimedia component, whether it's a PowerPoint. I highly recommend against Keynotes. In fact, I'm going to take that out of there. Prezi or a Prezi. Okay, those are great. Or maybe even a video. Okay, let's just do this in real time right now. And your peer critiques, okay? Now your presentation, we are going to have a sign-up sheet online, and then once everybody signs it, I'm going to lock the sheet, and I'm going to resend it out as a PDF to you. So you're going to pick your date and recognize it's very important we stick with that date. The speaker order will be determined on that day, because you may find that one of your colleagues gives a speech on gluten-free lifestyle and you want to give one on vegetarianism, and you go, whoa, that would be a great speech to give after that. Then the third speaker might be, whoa, I want to give mine now on why you should drink more water. That's going to flow great from the other two health focus speeches. Make sure that your final draft of the outlines will be sent to me on the day of your presentation. And in the syllabus, I have that very detailed for you. You're going to send me a piece of email correspondence with the link to your document and your Google Drive, and with your PDF, and you should actually attach the PDF as well in the email. Okay. You're also going to, if you want to dress up, you're more than welcome to do that. And I always add 3 extra points to students who want to do that. And there will be examples. Let's see, examples. I don't know what this is. Examples to the outline. Well, this is not even relevant because this was back in the day before the pandemic. So under your attire, if you want to dress up, or let's say you want to give a speech on the Boston Red Sox. If you wear a Boston Red Sox cap and shirt, that's an extra 3 points. I think what I was talking about there is I used to give examples like on the day in class, but all of those examples of exemplar outlines are provided right here. These are all past A speeches that students have presented that I've uploaded for you. The time, and that's down here where it says examples, okay, and have this up while you're working on the assignment, okay? So now let's take a look at the time limits. The time limits are 5 to 7 minutes, and it's -5 points if you go under or over time. So let's say, for example, you spoke for only 4.5 minutes. Your highest grade would be a 95. Or if you spoke for 7.5 minutes, your highest grade could be a 95. Okay, I mean, if you spoke for 6.5 minutes, it would be a 95 because you went over the allotted time limits. Additionally, if you want to speak from a full sentence outline that you've printed out, or you want to use your, for example, your iPad or your computer or even your phone, you may do so. But make sure now, if you do use a digital device, that you can also show your visual aids. So you need to work all of that out. If you're going to have a video that you want to show during your speech, make sure that somehow you figured out how you're going to use your digital device to speak from. And also, if you decide you want to use a video for your visual aid, make sure that you know how to show the audio, play the audio for us before your speech. Don't be like, how do I play sound? How do I do this? You should have figured all of that out before the speech begins. And there's ample time in office hours for me to show you how to do that, or you can just create your own Zoom session, quite frankly, and practice that. Make sure that you are not sitting at your computer reading an outline to me. That is story time. It's not giving a speech. You should be standing for your presentation. I've gotten the coolest homemade podiums. People have used musical stands, their barbecue pit, their kitchen table, whatever strikes your fancy. You're welcome to use it, but you should be standing where we can see your posture and your hand gestures so that we can give you effective feedback on how you're using your nonverbal communication. And these are some of the other things that we'll be looking for with your delivery. A visual aid is required. So make sure that you're following the guidelines from the textbook and lecture. All visual aids that are a PowerPoint or a Prezi should follow the rule of 6. The rule of 6 is no more than 6 lines of information, and each line of information should be no more than 6 words. What that means, students, is that you should not fling up your outline on a PowerPoint and read it to us. Okay, because that's just reading an outline to your audience. It's detracting from your personal style as a public speaker, which after all is what you're developing in this class. All visual aids should be pre-approved by me. It could be, now when the reason why I have this policy is I want no graphic violence for anybody who's overcome post-traumatic stress disorder. So I don't want any, if you're giving a speech on animal cruelty, don't show us the puppy dog with the bones popping out of his ribs because he's been starving. Tell us about the struggles of that puppy dog. All right. So use your discretion whenever you pick out your visual aid. If it's something that's offensive, I will stop your speech and take control over the Zoom. In the past, I would stop the speech in the classroom. It's much easier for me to do it in a Zoom virtual environment situation. So just make sure you clear that with me. In most instances, it literally takes 5 seconds. Professor, I'm going to show some Campbell's soup cans to talk about the sodium levels in soup. And I'll be like, that's fine. Or someone will say, well, Professor, I've got this clip from this documentary and I'm not sure if it's too graphic. What do you think? And sometimes I'll pick like 3 men and 3 women, and I'll say, what do y'all think? Is this too graphic? And get the input from your colleagues. Now, as far as what is required, you're going to turn in a full sentence outline, your works cited list, and make sure that you've completed a one-to-one student conference with me. For Zoom, make sure on the day of the speech, you email me your outline. Don't say, well, Professor, I emailed it last week. You may have made corrections last week and I want a PDF of it. Okay, so have a PDF of that on your Google Drive. Send me the link to your Google Drive and that document so I have it all in my inbox, as well as your works cited list and any PowerPoint that you have or whatever you're using. And a lot of this is self-explanatory. I'll go over this, but I've outlined it in the outline. So basically this means if you have a Roman numeral 2, and if you have an A, you should have a B. Don't just have an A. And the point is you don't want your subpoints or little subpoints to be lonely. So if you have a little 1, you need a little 2. Okay, and I'll have some examples of that in a moment. These are the elements of an introduction, and these are the elements of a conclusion, with the exception of a Monroe motivated sequence. And you may want to have signposts and transitions, as well as internal summaries, quite frankly. Okay, now, once again, there's going to be a workshop deadline that we're all going to agree upon in class. I'll have a rough one in the outline, in the course outline of the dates, the schedule, but we will make a final decision as a class when we get closer to that. All speeches in this class should have at least 3 sources, and you should cite the author's name, his or her qualifications, the publication, and the date of the publication. All quotes should be highlighted, and all paraphrased material should be highlighted. And you're going to make sure that you do not use parenthetical or endnotes in your speech, because think of it this way: you're going to literally write it what I call inline. You're going to type it up according to Dr. Smith, who was a PhD in history. He tells us in History Today in 2022 that, open quote mark, the actual information that you're reading, and close quote mark. Do not give us a parenthetical citation. Do not give us a end note, because we are not flipping through a piece of paper. And if you put that in there, you're not going to read it. I'm telling you, you're going to miss it. So you want to type it in. I don't really care if you use APA or MLA or Turabian or Chicago style. I really don't care what you do, as long as it's a full source citation. All right. And I should probably put that in there, or Chicago style. Is that how you spell it? Okay. Please purchase. Let's see. Please be sure to purchase a book at the bookstore or go online. Okay, perfect. And a lot of this, if you use the databases at ACC, there's a function where you can actually have it generate your source citations for you. And I would encourage you to use those databases versus just a Google search. Everybody in here is going to do a peer critique of every speech, and those should be positive, uplifting, and encouraging. And you're going to have 5 bulleted points of a critique for each student that you're going to drop in the chat. And we'll cover that more specifically when we get to public speaking days, but keep that in mind. But what that means is, students, that you're going to make sure that you are present in class for every day where we have speeches, so that you can fulfill that part of the requirement of the course. Now, these are some of the resources that you have available. Let's look at the examples here. So if you clicked on examples, be sure to have open while you're working on your presentation, and you clicked on this dog in the workplace. As you can see, this is exactly how your outline's going to look. You're going to have your attention getter, your credibility statement, your pointer, and your preview, and all of that is covered in the lecture on informative speeches. I teach you how to write introductions and conclusions. I give you examples. This information is covered here. These are some older lectures of what I'm doing right now that you can review. And so if you're wondering, what is she talking about? What's a pointer? It's all right here. And this is what I meant. If you had an A and a 1, you would need at least a 2, because you don't want the 1 to be lonely. And that's a common oversight of outline, that formulation that students have done, that I really like to call to your attention. Make sure that you have more than 1. Notice how this individual has the author's name. They should have had the qualification, who Cecilia Miller is, and then the article from pet statistics from spot.com. And she even tells you this information is compiled by, so she's giving you how this information was derived. And then you have the quote in a different highlighted. So that way, when I'm grading online, I'm not searching through it. I'm like, does this person have 3 quotes? And I'll be like, darn tootin' they do. They really have more than 3. They've got 1, 2, and so that way I'm not hunting and pecking. If you do not highlight this information, I will put a 1 by your name in the grade book, and you will have to come meet with me for office hours to demonstrate that you have 5 quotes in your speech, and you will have to highlight that. So do it on the front end, So you won't have to come to office hours and us go through that together, because that's exactly what we'll have to do. I'll put a 1 by your name in the grade book. You'll have to meet with me and complete this process. Otherwise, because it's a lot of work for me to flip through online to try to find where all the quotes are. So there's an example. Here are some examples of the quotes, I mean, of the different lectures that I've done in the past on the informative speeches. And here are the ones, and they're all located right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to upload this video and I'm going to put it right here. Okay, so I will cover all of this in class, but I wanted to have a video in case you needed additional. A lot of people like to watch the video first, and then when we get in class, you can ask me questions about the video, and then I can also go over this rubric as well. Okay, thank you for watching my video.